Hey everyone, Avenger Green here. So, I'll admit that when I started carving comic books this year, I didn't think I would be talking about this particular project. But a few weeks ago, I picked up the trade for Junkyard Joe, and now I am immediately hooked. To the point where I'm going to be covering all the books in the same universe. That universe is the Unnamed, created by writer Geoff Johns, artist Gary Frank, and colorist Brad Anderson. And if you've been reading DC Comics in the 21st century, you probably know Geoff Johns is the dude who's made redefining runs on Green Lantern, The Flash, Aquaman, a few Superman stories here and there. But most important to me is that he was the man who redefined the Justice Society of America for the modern era and made it and the Golden Age of of characters one of my favorite corners of the DCU. So when I heard about the new Ghost Machine initiative, he's going to be leading out of Image Comics that technically already had a bit of a start with two miniseries he had written in the past few years. I figured I'd give this new universe a shot by picking up Junkyard Joe, and I was immediately hooked. Once I started reading Junkyard Joe, I couldn't stop reading it, and when I was done, I ordered the Geiger trade, and now I am fully on board for the Unnamed. But you're probably wondering just what the Unnamed even is, or what's the deal with guys like Geiger and Junkyard Joe. Well, I'll let this little blurb herb in the back of I got both trades explain. Throughout history, the unlikely and strange heroes have risen and fallen. These men and women are mystery. Their identities and lives a secret. But for a great evil to be stopped, their stories must be told. From a radioactive family man in the near future to a British assassin during the American Revolution to a robotic killing machine seeking its creator and more. They are the Unnamed by fighting the unknown war. And Geoff Johns explained a bit more in the back of the Geiger trade. And just give me a second. So yeah, he explains in the back of this trade that this universe was basically him and Gary Frank wanting to create their own comic book universe after making superhero books for the big two for so long. Here's a direct quote. We came to Image to unleash a new timeline of heroes. Heroes born out of the most violent days of America. Then, now, and tomorrow. Their adventures take place across the USA. From 1776 to 2050. In our greatest dreams, we've always loved American myths like Paul Bunyan, Calamity Jane, and John Henry. These are the Unnamed. Geiger is the first of these. So it's basically a series of standalone genre adventures starring extraordinary people throughout a shared timeline. And as you can see, this timeline is pretty well thought out and detailed, showing when certain adventures and significant events takes place with a big name tied to each event. And it feels like a lot of planning really went into fleshing out how this world works, the series of events, and how the characters function in the greater sense of the world. In fact, I am going full dumb conspiracy theory here. I wouldn't be surprised if the reason a lot of Geoff Johns' DC comics in the last few years, like Doomsday Clock, Shazam, and the new Justice Society of America book, were constantly plagued by delay issues, was because he was putting a lot of his creative drive into the Unnamed. Which admittedly does kind of suck for guys like me who were waiting and invested in these books. But given the banger quality of both Geiger and Junkyard Joe, I think it works. I think it was kind of worth it. And that's the beauty of the Unnamed. And you can all this talk about it being an interconnected world set along a solid timeline kind of events. It's really just frosting on top of the well-made cake that is the stories in the individual comics. I probably would have been satisfied by just reading Junkyard Joe and any follow-up it would have had. The story has a very thorough beginning, middle, and end with a satisfying ending and an incredibly likable cast of characters. Characters that don't overstay are welcome. And fantastic art by Frank and Anderson. And the story will make you flinch with its unrelenting brutality, make you weep at its raw human emotion, and make you shout out, hell yeah, when the action starts up. And honestly, the same could be said for Geiger. Geiger, everything that's great about Junkyard Joe is in both books. Looks, and yeah, as you can see, it's a real visual treat. Admittedly, the villains of Geiger are a bit more fleshed out in Junkyard Joe, and despite both stories showing death, destruction, and tragedy, both of these stories he's actually have a surprisingly optimistic tone and ending, and that's especially impressive for Geiger since it's a post-apocalyptic story. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about spoilers and the plots of each of these books because I actually want to encourage anyone watching this video to go pick up these books and give them a read. Trust me, you won't be able to put either story down once you start. Alright. Now, and one thing I hear new comic fans and critics say is that shared comic universes like Marvel and DC feel too convoluted to keep up with. It feels like you need to be reading like 10 different books just to keep up with everything going on with Batman. Well, both the Unnamed and the Energon universe are really great alternatives to that. They're both shared comic book universes, but if you, the reader, aren't interested in the bigger picture and just want solid self-contained stories, you can totally just read one book and be satisfied. You can absolutely not be interested with Geiger or American Widow X, but be super intrigued by Redcoat or The Northerner. Or you can just pick up those books and you'll have complete stories that don't feel reliant on an ongoing shared universe. Now, that might change in the future if these start getting more interconnected, but for now, it just seems that Johns and company are really fun with each entry standing on their own. So, if you've been looking for the closest thing will probably get to a Fallout comic, go check out Geiger. If you've ever wanted a combination of the Iron Giant and Rambo First Blood Part 1, go check out Junkyard Joe. Oh, both are readily available in trade paperback form for relatively cheap. And if any of this sounds interesting to you, by the time this video comes out, the first issue of Geiger Ground Zero will be out. And you can probably guess that's what tomorrow's video is. A bit of a sneak peek for you there. Plus, we not only got a new Geiger ongoing releasing next April, but also a new series called Redcoat that deals with the more mystical side of this universe. If you're interested in the Unnamed, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification button so you always know when I'm talking about Geiger, Redcoat, and more. Until next time, have a great day.